Kind of ironic that I'm sitting here recording this stream on Martin Luther King Day, which is yet another Marxist hoax to divide the country on racial lines and to keep the grievance of racial conflict alive and well into the future. And they have successfully done so for 60 years. So, happy Martin Luther King Day. If you didn't know, I posted a couple stories about Martin Luther King on my Instagram today. Just going over a couple of the high points of his life. We all know the I Have a Dream speech that some people say is plagiarized. Whether that speech is plagiarized or not, we did learn throughout the rest of history after St. Martin Luther King died that he did indeed plagiarize much of his college work, and that he was absolutely involved in the communist movement, and that he was absolutely an adulterer, had many sexual partners outside of his wife, despite championing himself as a reverend or a preacher. Far worse, this story just gets worse and worse, guys. The more you dig into Martin Luther King, we find out he was not a great person. He also changed his name, by the way. It was Michael. But then we find out that he has this really weird rape situation where he apparently observed a rape that was happening and kind of encouraged it and didn't do anything at all whatsoever to stop it. And then we get into learning about how Martin Luther King felt about Jesus Christ and some of the core tenets of Christianity, such as Jesus Christ, being God in the flesh and being resurrected after he died on the cross, such as Virgin Mary being his mother, Immaculate Conception. Turns out Martin Luther King didn't believe a lot of these things. So we as Christians probably should not be idolizing this pro-rape, communist, liar, plagiarizer, blasphemer. This is the person we actually have a national holiday to celebrate every year for. Oh, who, by the way, poured an innumerable number of gallons of gasoline on the racial conflicts in the society. That was just the rest of his report card in regards to his ideological and religious beliefs. He also managed to make sure that there was no peace until the end of time between blacks and whites. How did he do that? By saying that we should live together. Oh, well, that's genius. We should absolutely have people who have historical grievances against each other and want reparations from each other, and who come from different continents and have entirely different biological profiles, behaviors, demeanors. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, to force those people to live together and to go to school together and have to work together, share the same neighborhoods. What a brilliant idea. I wonder how that's gone. Somebody should check in on that. I wonder if the civil rights movement effectively ended racism like we were told it would. I don't know about you guys, but I'm actually a little disappointed. I feel like it was supposed to work a little better than it did, because I think, just according to any day of the week when I turn the news on, America is still a hyper-racialized country. Everybody is more aware of each other's race than they ever have been before. And there are now more races than ever amongst us, and all of those races have grievances against the actual people who built this country. Muslims who have come to this country hate us because we bombed all their countries in the Middle East. Jews hate us because we did the Holocaust. Indians hate us because we took their land. Blacks hate us because we enslaved them. And they all will not stop hating us because all of them go to public school from the age of kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. They're reminded about these things every year. And despite the fact that these things didn't happen to them as individuals, many of these things happened to 3, 4, 5, or longer generations ago. Nonetheless, these people, we are supposed to believe, are going to live peacefully, harmoniously amongst us white majority here in America. Sounds pretty retarded, doesn't it, when you actually say it out loud? Hey, you 5 groups of people who hate us, would you like to come live in our neighborhoods? Cool. Do you want to run some of our government? Okay, great. How about this? How about we give you billions of dollars out of our pocket when you're not able to measure up in society and in the economy, and you can't maintain the same level of career and the same level of education. That's okay. That's okay if you guys don't measure up. We'll take the money out of the white people's pocket and put it into the Hispanics and the black people's pocket, and that way everything is the same. That will definitely solve racism once and for all, right? Wrong. Because we've done that, and we've been doing that for decades, and as I said, racial tensions in America have never been higher. We just had a race riot, by the way, need I remind you, not a race riot, a string of hundreds of riots 3 years ago because a drugged up, multiple-time felon died while committing multiple felonies. But because he was black, St. George Floyd, as we all know, also got his own holiday on the calendar, Juneteenth, as a reminder that, hey, everybody needs to remember how evil white people are, you know? Let's just not forget that white people enslaved black people, okay? That's like the most important thing we can possibly remember after the Holocaust. If we remember the Holocaust first, the next thing we need to remember is white Americans' history of slavery, and then a close third is the white people's colonialization all throughout the world, but especially how we slaughtered and genocided the peaceful, highly peaceful Native Americans who were here before us. Peaceful and pious Native Americans who were doing absolutely nothing other than smoking peyote and looking up at the stars. That's all they were doing. So, pretty ridiculous, I gotta say. I'm not a fan of Martin Luther King Day. I'm not a fan of Juneteenth. I'm really not a fan of minorities. Like, why do we have to feel bad about saying something like that? And like, I know a lot of people would hear that and be shocked. Whoa, what do you mean? You're just not a fan of all non-white people? I didn't say that there's no good non-white people. I have black mentors in my professional life who I learned from. There's other times where I have enjoyed the company of somebody who is not white in many friendships and professional co-working settings. It's not that I just dislike all other minorities. It's that I prefer white people. That's all. It's just a preference. I like the way white people look. I like the way white people talk. I like the way, on average, white people behave. I like white people's history. Maybe this has to do with me being white. I don't know. I might be biased in this regard. And I think what the liberals and what the diversity is our strength people would probably respond with, they'd say something like, well, maybe you don't like or prefer these other ethnic cultures because you just haven't looked into them enough. Like maybe you just don't really know African culture. And if you did a 4-year study of African culture, then you would probably like it just as much as European culture. Or if you went and spent a PhD's worth of time learning about Central America, then you would get a bigger, larger appreciation for Hispanic culture. Well, I'm sure I would learn a lot of things, and I'm sure I would learn far more than I would if I don't intentionally invest that time. But there's an infinite amount of time that could be spent on learning my own culture just as well. And this is a matter of trade-offs. As I said, I only have a finite amount of time that I can invest in researching any culture, any religion, any ethnicity's culture, any nation's culture. And so I like to research my own culture. I like to research my Swedish ancestors. I have Jewish ancestors. I like to figure out how I'm related to them. I have all of the European people's accomplishments, which are plenty to go through and learn about. I have all of Christendom's accomplishments throughout the last 2023 years to go through and try to pull as much pertinent facts for myself being a Christian out of. There's an ocean of information out there, but what I think we should all do is probably focus on our own people's culture. And so if you're a black Christian, then I would suggest that, like me, you dive as deep as you can into Christianity, but you also learn about your people's history and how they got to their current place in the world. Why is Africa as poverty-stricken as it is and has been for the last thousands of years? And if you're an Arab, then you should go and do a deep dive onto why your part of the world remains to be in perpetual conflict with itself. The infighting, the Shia versus Sunni. And obviously, we know why you guys have had such a tumultuous relationship in the last 80 years related to Israel. But, a lot of people don't. I mean, a good example is even Muslims who say, well, yeah, obviously, all of this military conflict comes down to Israel, but they'll also have a larger problem with the West, or they'll actually think America runs Israel. And so that only shows that there's a lack of information about your own part of the world's history that you're unaware of. If you think that America pulls the strings over Israel, then you got some more history to learn. If you think that the Crusades were a persecution, a violent marauding across Europe to kill people for no apparent reason, no rational reason, then you have a lot of history to research. If you think that Islam is a religion of peace, then you have a lot of history to research. If you think that the only difference between Christians and Jews is one believes the Old Testament, the other one believes the New Testament, you got a lot of research to do about the Talmud and the Kabbalah. So, as I said, there's just an ocean, a genuine ocean of things, historically speaking, that you can go and pour yourself into learning about. And you should try to become well-rounded with the other parts of the world and the other world religions. But what I'm saying is, you as a black person, you as an Asian person, me as a white person, we should all have a bond with our own people. And I don't really think that a lot of other races would even argue with me. What I find funny is that it's really only other white people who argue with me, and that's because they've been psychologically lobotomized to think that they have to think that there's something wrong with being proud of their own white ancestors or their own role within the larger timeline of white people in this country. They want to disassociate from all of the founding fathers and all of the settlers and colonialists. They want to somehow say no, that wasn't me. I was born in 1980. I was born in 1990. That wasn't me. Well, listen. How about your ancestors? I mean, there is something to be said for the blood of your ancestors on your hand. It's not just the blood. You have to take the blood, but you also get to have the spoils. So here in the Western world where we're, hanging out, living this ridiculously luxurious lifestyle, big suburban houses, amazing cars. We're all walking around with $1,000 iPhones. Everybody's got state-of-the-art computers and multiple 60, 80-inch TVs. If you want to live on all of that and actually say that I'm part of the people who enabled all of this, then I think you should. You should celebrate the innovation and ingenuity of white European people. We're responsible for the industrial age, the electronic age, the digital age, the internet age, the automobile, human flight, rocketry, air conditioning, on and on and on. The modern world that we live in was largely built by white Europeans. And that's not something any of us should be ashamed of. In fact, we should be celebrating it. But unfortunately, celebrating your white European heritage is a criminal offense in many places. Being proud of it, outspoken and proud of it, is enough to get you banned off of social media, and it's enough to make sure you never get a job again. I mean, to sit here and say that I'm proud of being part of the ethnic line that are responsible for the entire way of life of modern society is, it's okay if you keep it that broad. But if you actually specify, well, who are you talking about? What line of people are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about European people. It's not Africans who created all this, and it's not Indians, and it's not Asians, not Jews, not Hispanic people. This was handed over on a silver platter to the entire world. And who is the most hated race in the whole world? White people. Look at this. I mean, this is the criminal